Formula One driver contracts seem to be getting crazier and crazier. Max Verstappen's new contract makes him the best paid driver in the history of the sport. But that's without taking inflation into account, which is pretty important when we compare drivers' paychecks. Every pound you earned in the year 2000 is worth 1.79 in 2021. When we take that into account, we can properly compare the best paid drivers of all time. Number one will surely be a surprise to you, so don't go anywhere. No driver fought harder to get into Formula One racing than Nigel Mansell, and few fought harder when they got there. Hugely determined, immensely aggressive, and spectacularly daring, he was one of the most exciting drivers ever. With his win or bust approach, 31 wins and 32 crashes, he became the most successful British driver and joined the ranks of the all-time greats in terms of fastest laps, wins and poles. Going into the 1994 Formula One season, he was the reigning world champion and had also found time to win the IndyCar World Series. Williams-Renault offered him an £11.98 million contract for the year, which in today's money is £25.35 million. Not bad considering he only actually raced 4 times that year. Ayrton Senna da Silva was born on March 21st, 1960, into a wealthy Brazilian family where, with his brother and sister, he enjoyed a privileged upbringing. He never needed to race for money, but his deep need for racing began with an infatuation for a miniature go-kart his father gave him when he was 4 years old. He made his debut with Toleman in 1984. At Monaco, a race he would win 6 times, his sensational record to Alain Prost's McLaren in torrential rain was confirmation of the phenomenal talent that would take the sport by storm. In 1988, when McLaren Honda won 15 of the 16 races, Senna beat his teammate Alain Prost 8 wins to 7 to take his first driving title. Senna's third title in 1991 was straightforward as his domination as a driver became even more pronounced, as did his obsession with becoming better still. Some of his greatest performances came in his final year with McLaren in 1993, which is also when he made the most money in his Formula One career. During 1993, he was paid £12.29 million over the course of the 16-race season, which today would be around £26.7 million. He would race on the same team as Nigel Mansell the next season, but like Mansell, would only race a few times due to arguments over his contract. It ended with a whimper at Ferrari for Sebastian Vettel, but it had all started out as another lucrative and landmark deal with a team hell-bent on wrestling back the initiative from Mercedes. The Germans had won 4 successive titles with Red Bull from 2010 to 2013, but in 2015 switched over to Ferrari with the goal of being champion again in red. None of those seasons yielded a 5th crown though, with finishes of 3rd, 4th and 2nd. It was perhaps the latter result which persuaded Ferrari to retain his services for 3 further years, but after being runner-up again in 2018, his form faded and he left at the conclusion of the 2020 campaign. It was his form at Red Bull which earned him a huge contract with Ferrari during his first 3 years there. The £27 million a year he was earning in 2015 is the equivalent of £31.85 million a year now, and makes him the 5th best paid driver in the history of the sport. After winning the World Drivers' Championship in 2022, Max Verstappen secured a huge new contract with Red Bull. Way back in 2016, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner said, "Max has proven to be an outstanding young talent. His performance at Toro Rosso has been impressive so far, and we are pleased to give him the opportunity to drive for Red Bull Racing." Giving Max that opportunity had instant rewards. He won his first race for the Red Bull team, and the strong bond between Red Bull and Max Verstappen was built. At the time, Max was earning around $550,000 a year, but since then, his success has been rewarded handsomely by Red Bull to now make him the most well-paid driver in Formula One history. That is, before we take into account inflation. The world champion's new contract earns him £33.3 million a year before any bonuses he earns. According to Forbes, Lewis Hamilton earned in excess of £57 million in 2021 through wages and bonuses, and that's without winning the championship. However, the figures represent a short-term deal. It was back in 2016 when Mercedes truly pulled out the stops, financially anyway, to nail him down. He had won 2 successive titles with the Silver Arrows when they ensured he'd be winning a few more by offering him a 3-year deal worth more than £103 million. It averaged out at around £1.47 million a race, and while the 2016 campaign went the way of teammate Nico Rosberg, Hamilton prevailed again in both 2017 and 2018. Hamilton is now one of the richest figures in sport, coming in 8th for Forbes' richest athletes in 2021. With 7 world titles to his name, 6 of which have come with Mercedes, Toto Wolff can argue the investment has been worth it. That 2016 contract, which earned him £34.3 million at the time, would be worth £39.42 million today. Back in 1996, the deal offered to Michael Schumacher to leave Benetton for Ferrari represented the biggest in the history of the sport. The German legend duly accepted. And why wouldn't he have, given his annual wages of £22.75 million was also enhanced with numerous bonus incentives. The irony was that none of Schumacher's titles with the Italian giants came between 1996 and 1999. But given he proceeded to win 5 consecutive titles after that, team bosses would have had few regrets about the initial terms and conditions offered to secure his services. That deal today would have been the equivalent of £45.43 million, but that's still only enough to get him second on this list. During a stellar career, Kimi Raikkonen was hardly one for exuberant expressions. He did, however, come out of his shell when away from the bright lights of Formula One, and according to fellow drivers, enjoyed a night out or two. Not like he couldn't afford to indulge, mind, given that from 2007 to 2009, he earned more than £112 million from his 3-year deal with Ferrari. It averaged out at more than £37 million per season, a figure that Scuderia bosses could argue was justified in the first year of his deal, when he dramatically beat then rookie Lewis Hamilton to the title. The Finn couldn't repeat the feat in either of the 2 campaigns that followed, and then embarked on a 2-year hiatus from the sport as he pursued other motor racing ambitions. He did so with plenty in the bank. Today, that £37 million per season contract would be worth £54.62 million a year, making Kimi Raikkonen by far the best paid driver in Formula One history. I bet you didn't guess that, did you? Let us know your thoughts on these insane driver contracts in the comments down below. And while you're there, please subscribe to F101.